Welcome, deep divers. Ever wonder what really goes into making a historical giant, beyond the headlines and the statues? Today we're diving deep, really deep, into the life of Nelson Mandela. We're using his own words, his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, as our guide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating because, as one review put it, the Mandela in this book, well, he's considerably more human than the icon of legend.
It really is. It's an incredibly powerful read because it's so personal, so candid. You get this real sense of his evolution, how his ideas changed, the sacrifices. It's all there. It's not just history. It's the story of a person, a very human hero figuring things out under, well, unimaginable pressure.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, to trace that journey. Right from his childhood in a small village, through his education, his first steps into law and politics, all the way up to that pivotal moment he embraces armed struggle and faces imprisonment.
It's a story of incredible personal growth, but it's tied so tightly to the struggle of a whole nation. You can't separate the two.
Absolutely.
And you see that connection right from the dedication in the book. He dedicates it, yes, to his family, his kids, grandkids, but then he adds, all my comrades, friends, and fellow South Africans whom I serve, and whose courage, determination, and patriotism remain my source of inspiration.
Wow.
Right from the start, it frames his life as, fundamentally about service to his people.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. His roots. We're talking deep Thumbu tribal heritage.
Deep roots, absolutely. He traces his lineage back, I think, 20 generations to Kings Wide. The Thumbu people were part of the larger Nguni group, migrating centuries ago, eventually integrating with the Xhosa Nation.
So a really long history in southeastern South Africa.
Exactly, since at least the 11th century, living off the land, a strong community structure.
And he grew up in Qunu. What was that like, according to his book?
He paints a really vivid picture. A narrow valley, streams, green hills, modest huts, beehive-shaped, mud walls, dung floors.
Simple living, very connected to nature.
Very. And tradition was everything. You had the traditional ochre blankets contrasting with maybe a few Western clothes worn by Christians. Cattle, sheep, goats grazing together. It's this grounding in community, in consensus, respect for the land. That's the foundation. He learned to belong first.
It sounds almost idyllic, but there were harsh lessons too, even early on. His father.
Ah, yes. Gadla Henry Umkhonto, a chief. Tall, stern, and as Mandela says, very stubborn. There's this key story where his father defied a white magistrate over a tribal dispute.
He just refused to show up.
Refused. So the magistrate's power came from the British king, not Thimbu custom. It was pure principle for him.
And the consequence?
Swift. He was deposed, lost his chieftainship. Just like that.
Wow. What a lesson for a young boy. Defiance has a cost.
A huge lesson. Standing on principle, even when it costs you everything. You can see how that might lodge itself in a young mind, right? A precursor to his own future battles.
Definitely. But childhood wasn't all about these heady lessons. There was the veld, playtime.
Oh, absolutely. He spent hours out in the open, playing, fighting with other boys. Became a herd boy at 5.
He talks about a real connection to the cattle, doesn't he?
Almost mystical, yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't just wealth. They were like a blessing. And he learned practical skills out there, hunting birds, getting honey, swimming, fishing.
And stick fighting. That sounds intense.
It was essential, learning to parry, feint, footwork. They had this game, Finty, like a mock battle, teams hurling sticks at targets. And the skilled boys, they were admired like, great generals.
So learning strategy, teamwork, resilience, all through play.
Exactly. Lessons that you could argue resurfaced later in a much bigger struggle.
And woven through all this was the spiritual side of life. His father was a kind of priest.
Unofficially, yes. He presided over traditional rites, planting, harvest, births, funerals.
Mm-hmm.
They revered the Xhosa spirit Kamada. It was quite separate from the Christianity being introduced by some educated families nearby.
A holistic worldview, then. Sacred, secular, nature, spirit, all kind of blended.
Very much so. That traditional Xhosa understanding of the world, that was his starting point, his anchor, before everything started to change.
And change it did. His father died, and he moves to Mkhitaryan under the Regent Jungantapa's guardianship.
A big shift. His mother's departure was quite stoic, just telling him, brace yourself, my boy. She knew his father wanted this wider education for him.
Mkhitaryan was different from Qunu.
Oh, much more sophisticated. He felt like a country boy, he says. Lived with the region's own children, Justice and Nomafu, treated exactly the same. Part of the royal quartet.
But he wasn't being groomed to rule, was he?
No, that was Justice's path. Mandela was being prepared to counsel rulers. A different, but still important role in the traditional structure.
And it's there he sees this traditional court in action, the regent being openly criticized.
Isn't that amazing? People just laying into him really vehemently, and the regent just listens. No defense, no emotion.
That's incredible. What a contrast to, well, most political systems we know.
Exactly. It's participatory democracy in action. And the goal wasn't majority rule crushing the minority. It was consensus. Everyone had to be heard.
You can see how that would shape his later views on leadership and inclusivity.
Absolutely. A foundational lesson in how true governance can work.
Around this time, there's also the circumcision ritual. Painful, profound.
Deeply significant. Performed by a famous expert, an Insibi, with an assegai, a spear.
A spear, wow.
Intense. And despite the pain, they had to cry out, "Indi and Dota, I am a man." It's more than physical. It's cultural, spiritual, imparting discipline, belonging, the responsibilities of manhood. A forging experience.
So grounded in tradition, tested by ritual, he then steps into formal Western education. Clarkebury Institute.
The highest institution for Africans in Thembuland at the time. The regent's advice was basically, do us proud and learn from Reverend Harris, this white Thembu who supposedly understood the people.
And Clarkebury starts broadening his perspective even more.
Yes, definitely. He mentions his zoology teacher, a Sotho man marrying his Xhosa woman. That was seen as extremely unusual then, very taboo.
Challenging that tribal separation.
Exactly. He says it loosened the hold of tribalism on him, the beginnings of identifying as African, not just Thembu or Axos.
He also meets a Xhosa hero there, Makwai.
Yes, and he was initially disappointed. Makwai wasn't physically imposing, spoke slowly, but then his words. Mandela says he turned the universe upside down, a lesson in substance over style.
And from Clarkebury onto Fort Hare University, even more sophisticated.
Another level up. Yeah. Founded by Scottish missionaries, introduced him to more Western ways, pajamas, toothpaste.
Toothpaste instead of ash.
Right. Flush toilets, hot showers. He felt he was being groomed for success. You know, the university degree was a big deal for the regent.
It sounds like a period of huge personal growth, adapting to all this.
Immense. Socially, academically. He tells a funny story about asking a respected leader's wife, Mrs. Bakwe, to dance, not realizing who she was, with his professor watching.
Oh, dear.
He apparently studied like mad afterwards to make up for his high spirits. It's these moments, these adjustments, that are shaping him, teaching him to navigate this complex new world.
But Fort Hare wasn't just about social adjustments. It's where he first really locks horns with authority, politically speaking.
Yes, the student representative council elections. He resigned twice on principle. A minority had voted, and he refused to accept the result, felt it was morally wrong to claim student confidence without a mandate.
Even though it put his education at risk.
That's the key. He grappled with it. The fear of sacrificing his career over an abstract moral principle. But he held firm, resented the principle's power over his fate.
So that defiance we saw in his father's story, it's emerging in him now.
Clearly, it's a defining moment. Principled opposition, even at personal cost. It led to his expulsion, but it set a pattern for his entire life.
Expulsion wasn't the only consequence pushing him forward, though. Back home, the regent had plans for him.
Yes, arranged marriages. For both him and Justice. The regent had even paid the lobola, the bride price. Suddenly, it wasn't abstract anymore.
So they had to get out, fast.
They planned an escape to Johannesburg while the regent was away. Quite cunning, actually. Tricking someone into helping with travel documents.
But it almost went wrong.
Almost. The magistrate they dealt with tried to be helpful and sent word back to the regent, inadvertently tipping him off.
Talk about unintended consequences. That this escape, it feels like more than just avoiding marriage.
Oh, absolutely. It's a claim for autonomy, isn't it?
No.
Choosing his own path. A personal declaration of independence before the larger political ones.
They finally get to Johannesburg, the city of gold. What was his first impression?
Not what he expected. Crown Mines wasn't glittering towers, it was rusted tin shanties. The landscape barren, pockmarked like a war-torn battlefield.
A harsh reality check.
Completely. The noise was constant drills, dynamite shouting, and everywhere, tired black men in overalls living in these bleak, single-sex barracks.
A stark introduction to the industrial machine of apartheid.
And the human cost. A world away from Qunu's green hills. It showed him the raw, dehumanizing reality for black laborers. A foundational experience.
They managed to get jobs at the mine, but their freedom is short-lived. They boast a bit too much.
Yeah. Flushed with success, they tell a friend from back home about their clever escape. Big mistake.
Yeah, friend informs on them.
Straight to the Induna, the overseer. Next thing they know, the Induna shows the telegram, "Send boys home at once."
Oof. The regent's reach was long.
It really underscores how tight the system was, how limited their freedom really was, and the risks involved, who you could trust. Their fight for autonomy was far from over.
But Mandela doesn't go home. He's determined to pursue law in Johannesburg.
Yes, he manages to get articles at a liberal Jewish law firm, Witkin, Sadelsky, and Eidelman. Mr. Sadelsky was a key mentor, very kind, believed education was the key to liberation.
A liberal firm, but still South Africa in the 40s. Not free from prejudice, I imagine.
Not at all. He mentioned seeing an African female typist electrifying, he calls it, because it was so unusual. Then there's the subtle stuff, like the colleague making a point of using the old African teacup.
Microaggressions, we'd call them now.
Exactly. And worse, a white secretary asking him for money for shampoo because she was too embarrassed to take dictation from him. Humiliating.
So he's learning the law, but also learning how racism works on the ground daily.
Precisely. Seeing the gap between legal theory and lived reality in an unjust system.
And all this while living in poverty in Alexandra Township.
Yes. Scraping by on £2 a week, paying rent, bus fare for the native bus, university fees, buying candles to study by. He learned poverty firsthand.
He mentions it being an incubator of true friendship.
A lovely phrase. He tells a story about being embarrassed by his worn-out clothes trying to avoid an acquaintance, Phyllis Maseko. But she saw him, called him over, gave him food later, never mentioning his poverty.
Genuine kindness.
It really highlighted who his true friends were. These experiences kept him deeply connected to the struggles of ordinary people.
And it's around this time he has his first real brush with communism, through a colleague, Nat Bregman.
Yes, Bregman shares a sandwich with him, explaining it symbolizes the communist ideal to share everything we have.
A powerful gesture. Did Mandela join the party then?
No, not then. He was curious, attended some meetings, but his mentor advised against it, and Mandela himself felt the party's atheism was a barrier.
Plus, their analysis was different, right? Class versus race.
Exactly. He saw the South African struggle as primarily racial at that point. The communist focus on class struggle seemed, well, not particularly relevant to him then. But the seeds were sown, different ways of thinking about liberation were entering his orbit.
His political thinking is evolving, but his ties to tradition are still strong. He goes back to see the regent.
Yes, a really important visit. He felt he needed to mend that relationship, realizing he'd sort of shut down his feelings about the Thembu royal house as a way to cope with leaving.
And there's some family drama involving his cousin Justice.
There is, and Mandela defends Justice, arguing he's an adult. It shows his growing independence, even when someone tries to appeal to his clan identity, calling him Madiba.
But sadly, the reconciliation is brief. He learns the regent died soon after.
Yes, reads it in a newspaper. Missed the funeral. He felt immense guilt, reflecting on how he'd spurned him, despite the regent's constant support. It's a very human moment of regret.
This seems like a turning point, consolidating his shift away from purely traditional loyalties.
Absolutely. He explicitly says his duty felt like he was shifting to my people as a whole, not just a particular section. Johannesburg, the wider struggle, that was his focus now.
He says, I found myself being drawn into the world of politics because I was not content with my old beliefs.
That sums it up perfectly. A conscious move towards a national Pan-African identity, essential for his role in the ANC.
And Johannesburg itself keeps broadening his horizons. He moves into this compound, WNLA.
A real melting pot. Sothos, Tswanas, Zulus, Exoses, all living together using this pidgin language, Fanagalo. He saw ethnic tensions, but also cooperation.
And at Wits University, his circle widens even more. He meets people crucial to the future struggle.
Lifelong friends and comrades.
Yeah.
Joe Slovo, Ruth First Ardent Communists, George Bezos, and significantly, Bram Fischer.
An Afrikaner.
Yes, from a prominent Afrikaner family who became this incredibly dedicated supporter of the liberation movement. It showed the struggle was already building this multiracial coalition.
It's in this context the ANC Youth League forms in 1944 to push the ANC in a more radical direction.
Exactly, to overthrow white domination. Interestingly, Mandela initially hesitated to join, felt insecure about his public speaking compared to figures like Walter Sisulu or Anton Lambed.
What was the Youth League's specific ideology? They differed from the communists?
Markedly. They insisted oppression was primarily racial, not class-based, advocated African nationalism, led by Africans, demanded land redistribution, free education.
Was there debate within that? Different strands of nationalism?
Oh, yes. A tension between a stricter Africa for the Africans view, maybe inspired by Garvey, and the League's official Africanism, which did acknowledge South Africa as multiracial. Mandela admits he leaned towards the ultra-revolutionary stream then. Angry at whites, wouldn't have minded if they just left. It shows his initial, quite understandable, raw anger.
Then 1946 happens, a big year, the mine workers strike.
Huge, 70,000 African miners demanding basic rights, organized by the AMWU.
And the state's reaction.
Brutal repression, arrests, prosecutions for sedition, framed as fighting the Red Menace.
And wasn't there also the Ghetto Act affecting Indians?
Yes, the Asiatic Land Tenure Act.
Yeah.
Severely restricting Indian rights. Dr. Dadu called it a sham.
How did these events impact Mandela?
Profoundly. He said they forced him to recast my whole approach, showed him how interconnected the struggles were, and just how ruthless the state could be.
Amidst all this political turmoil, he's also building a family life, moves into his first proper house in Orlando.
Yes, 80115 Orlando West in Soweto. Basic, box-in municipal house, tin roof, cement floor, bucket toilet.
But a home of his own, he felt that was important.
Immensely. A man is not a man until he has a house of his own, he wrote. But it came at a cost.
The late nights with the ANC.
Exactly. His young son, Thimby, asking his mother, "Where does Daddy live?" A heartbreaking early sign of the sacrifices the struggle demanded of his family life.
Politically, things were moving towards more cooperation between groups, though. The Doctors' Pact of 1947.
A key step. Africans, Indians, colors agreeing to work together, respecting each group's identity but recognizing the power in unity, led to campaigns like Votes for All.
But Mandela still had reservations initially about who got the credit, about communist influence.
He admits it quite frankly. He was suspicious, worried about Indians or the white left dominating the ANC, even broke up some CP meetings back then.
So still quite focused on African leadership at that point.
Very much so. It shows his thinking was still evolving, moving from that narrower nationalism towards the broader, non-racial alliance he later championed.
But that evolution was happening. His opposition to communism started to soften through debates with Moses Kotane.
Yes, Kotane, the CP General Secretary who was also on the ANC executive, would argue with him for hours. Kotane's point was simple. We are all fighting the same enemy. We do not seek to dominate.
And Mandela found it hard to argue against that.
Eventually, yes. He saw the sacrifices communists like Kotane, Ismail Mir, Ruth First were making, saw dedicated ANC members who were also communists. He realized his prejudice wasn't helpful. Dr. Dadu, a Marxist, became a hero to him. It shows his intellectual honesty, his pragmatism. Allies were allies regardless of ideology. Unity was paramount.
This evolving perspective and growing unity set the stage for the Defiance Campaign in 1952, a major escalation.
A bold move. The ANC, the SAIC, others demanding the repeal of 6 specific unjust laws, Suppression of Communism Act, Group Areas Act, passed laws.
And the timing was deliberate, right? April 6th.
Highly symbolic.
The
300th anniversary of Van Riebeck's arrival, a day of celebration for whites, a day marking centuries of oppression for Africans.
Malin's government just dismissed their demands.
Curtly. Asserted white rights, threatened force. The ANC saw it as a declaration of war, basically leaving them no choice but defiance.
Mandela's view on nonviolence here is interesting, not a rigid principle.
More of a tactic. Practical, necessary at that stage, inspired by Gandhi, but to be used as the situation demanded, not if it became self-defeating. The plan was targeted civil disobedience. Volunteers breaking specific laws entering whites-only areas, using segregated facilities.
And discipline was key. No retaliation.
Absolutely crucial. Mandela stressed the danger, the need for non-retaliation, even when provoked by police violence. It was about moral high ground and exposing the system's injustice.
How did the campaign launch go?
Started April 6th. Mandela spoke. Nanasita led the first group of defiers. Walter Sisulu joined reluctantly when someone else didn't show.
And it caught on.
Massively. Over 8,500 people participated in 5 months. Doctors, lawyers, workers, students. ANC membership exploded from 20,000 to 100,000.
Mandela was traveling constantly.
All over. Explaining, mediating, winning support, one by one. Communication was difficult then for Africans. He said it proved that unity among the black people had at last become a reality. A huge psychological victory.
But success brought crackdown. Mandela himself was arrested.
July 30th, 1952. Charged under the Suppression of Communism Act, raids became common.
And there was that incident with Dr. Moroka, the ANC President General.
Yes, a real shock. Moroka hired his own lawyer, separating himself from the others being tried. Said he felt excluded from planning and didn't want association with communists.
Exposed some internal tensions.
Big time. Forced Mandela to defend that principle of working with anyone against racial oppression. Unity wasn't always easy, even within the movement.
Despite the campaign's impact, Mandela was realistic about its limits. He didn't think it could overthrow the government.
No, he cautioned against unrealistic expectations. Said the government was too strong and too ruthless. The goal was to focus attention on our grievances, build unity, not achieve immediate victory.
That realism, that strategic thinking is quite evident.
It really is. It showed an understanding of power dynamics and probably paved the way for thinking about other forms of struggle later on.
And anticipating further repression led him to develop the M Plan.
The Mandela Plan, yes.
Yeah.
A clandestine structure. Cells of about 10 houses, street stewards, zone chiefs, all reporting up to keep the ANC functioning if leaders were arrested.
Very strategic, building resilience from the ground up.
Absolutely. Based on trust, grassroots organization, adaptable for townships or rural areas, the cell steward was the key link. Incredible foresight, really.
Around the same time, 1952, he and Oliver Tambo opened their law firm. A significant step.
Mandela and Tambo.
Yeah.
In Chancellor House. One of the few places Africans could rent downtown.
Mm.
Became the go-to firm for Africans facing apartheid laws.
They must have been inundated.
Besieged, he says. Dealing with everything past law violations, illegal evictions, whites-only restrictions. It just showed how apartheid permeated every aspect of life.
And they faced discrimination themselves, even as lawyers.
Oh, yes. Magistrates calling Mandela a Kafir lawyer. Eventually, the government refused to renew their office permit under the Group Areas Act. They had to operate illegally.
So the law firm wasn't just a business, it was an act of resistance itself.
Exactly. A place for dignity. A sympathetic ear. Tambo's compassion was legendary. It was a frontline defense against the daily legal assaults of apartheid.
But the state kept tightening the screws. The Sophiatown removals that felt like a turning point towards more militancy.
A major test, definitely. Now, Sophiatown was unique. Black people could own property there. The government planned to demolish it, move everyone, even before new housing was ready. Just callous.
There were huge protests. Asihambi, we're not moving.
Huge meetings in Freedom Square. Father Huddleston spoke out bravely. And it's here Mandela really shifts internally.
He advocated self-defense.
Passionately. Though he used a protest song to calm the crowd and prevent immediate violence. But the ANC leadership reprimanded him severely for departing from nonviolence.
So publicly he towed the line, but privately.
In my heart, he wrote, I knew that nonviolence was not the answer. A crucial internal break.
And the government response was personal banning orders against him.
Severe ones. At 35, effectively ended his direct public ANC work, forced him underground, made everything he did illegal.
He felt like a severed limb.
Yes. Cut off, only consulted indirectly. He realized going to jail for violating a ban was pointless at that stage. Underground work became the only viable option. The state was forcing their hand.
Another government measure that caused outrage was the Bantu Education Act.
1953. Deeply sinister. Designed, as Professor Matthews said, for ignorance and inferiority. To deliberately hold back African progress.
Was there unified opposition?
Widespread indignation. Yes, black and white. But unified resistance. Not really. Most churches condemned it, but only a few, like the Catholics at Bishop Reeves, actually closed schools rather than hand them over.
Even Mandela's own church complied.
His Wesleyan church handed over 200,000 students. Mandela saw it as a massive failure of collective action. Allowed the state to march over us.
Then came the Freedom Charter in 1955. A vision for the future, but also controversial internally.
Very visionary. Endorsed private enterprise, rights to own property, businesses, but also called for nationalizing mines, banks, monopolies to ensure economic justice wasn't just for whites.
And the Africanists objected.
Strongly. They saw it as socialist, too influenced by white communists. A betrayal of pure African nationalism.
How did Mandela respond?
He defended it publicly, argued it wasn't scientific socialism, but about basic economic fairness and opportunity for Africans. He was trying to bridge ideological divides, build a broad church.
He was also dealing with challenges from traditional leaders who were collaborating with the government, like his own nephew.
Katie Martanzima, yes. Daliwanga. He was persuading the Transkei Assembly to accept Bantu authorities, consolidating his own power within the apartheid system.
That's been difficult personally.
Very. Mandela had a heated all-night debate with him. They remained friends on family terms, but politically became antagonists. Daliwanga's impis later attacked opponents violently.
And Winnie's father supported Matanzima too.
Creating a really painful conflict for her. torn between her husband and her father. Shows how the political permeated everything.
All these pressures, the failures of nonviolence, the state's brutality, it all leads to the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe, MK, in 1961.
The fateful step. After 50 years of nonviolence as a core principle, realizing it had brought nothing but more repressive legislation.
And fear that people would turn to uncontrolled terrorism.
Exactly. They felt they had to offer an organized, disciplined alternative. So MK, the Spear of the Nation, was formed. And Mandela, the military novice, was tasked with starting it.
He really studied guerrilla warfare, didn't he?
Extensively. Looked at Cuba, the Boer commandos, China, Israel, Algeria, trying to learn from others' experiences.
His quote sums it up: "I have chosen this course which is more difficult. I will continue fighting for freedom until the end of my days."
A profound commitment, knowing it meant leaving his family, his profession, living as an outlaw. Total dedication.
So the treason trial ends, he's acquitted, but immediately goes underground. Becomes the Black Pimpernel.
Right. Knew he'd be banned or arrested again instantly, lived by night, moving between safe houses. Solitude was useful for planning, he said, but the loneliness for his family was intense.
And the disguises. Chauffeur, garden boy.
Had to be invisible. Changed his walk, his demeanor, the blue overalls, the glasses, allowed him to move around driving a master's car. He even drove right past the head of the security branch once.
Nerve-wracking.
Absolutely. Constant vigilance. A completely different life.
And he issues that defiant statement from underground, refusing to surrender.
Crucial move.
Yeah.
Declaring himself an outlaw, staying in South Africa, urging people on. It kept the flame alive, showed the leadership wasn't broken, just hidden. A powerful message.
Meanwhile, the struggle gains international recognition with Luthuli's Nobel Peace Prize.
1960. Hugely significant. A massive boost for the movement's legitimacy and a real slap in the face to the nationalists who painted Luthuli as a dangerous radical.
It showed the world was watching, recognized the moral justice of their cause.
Even if the Afrikaner government just saw it as Western bias, it mattered internationally.
Then, in '62, Mandela undertakes that secret trip across Africa. Why?
To get support for MK money, training facilities, political backing. He attended the PIF-MEXA conference in Addis Ababa.
And he meets Luthuli before leaving, a strange meeting.
Disconcerting, yes. Luthuli, quite ill by then, apparently didn't recall the discussions about forming MK, even though he'd been part of the decision. Mandela had to clarify that.
The journey itself sounds like an adventure. Elephants, lions.
He felt he was in the Africa of myth and legend. Met key leaders, Nair in Tanzania, Bourguiba in Tunisia, who offered immediate help. Witnessed military parades in Morocco.
But he also encountered skepticism about the ANC's alliances.
Yes, particularly the role of white and Indian communists. Questions about whether they controlled the ANC. The PIA's explicitly anti-white nationalism was sometimes more appealing to other African leaders.
So he had to constantly defend the ANC's non-racialism.
Constantly. It was a recurring theme, a challenge they faced both at home and abroad.
He returns to Liliesleaf Farm, briefs the leadership, and then gets arrested.
August 5th, 1962. Driving back to Joburg with Cecil Williams, stopped near Howick.
And he had a gun and notebook with him.
Incredibly risky. He managed to hide them in the car's upholstery just before being searched. Quick thinking saved potential many others.
The charges were relatively minor, though. Incitement, leaving the country illegally.
A relief, in a way. It meant the state didn't have solid evidence linking him directly to MK sabotage or treason at that point. Bought them time.
And he decides to represent himself at the trial.
Bold move. To use the trial as a platform, put the state on trial, symbolize the struggle.
They tried to isolate him during the trial prep.
Moved him to Pretoria local prison. Put him in a cell with a suspected informant. He had to demand space to work. Supported bail for Sisulu, but refused it for himself. Had to face the consequences.
His courtroom statement was powerful, confronting the system directly.
Challenged the all-white court. I feel like a black man in a white man's court. Pleaded guilty, but justified his actions based on his African heritage and the failures of nonviolence.
He argued violence was forced upon them.
Yes, after 50 years of peaceful protest brought only more repression. Said leaders couldn't hold back followers indefinitely. Blamed white supremacy for the lack of dignity. Convicted, sentenced, but already studying for law exams in prison. Refused to appeal. Ready for martyrdom. Utter resolve.
Before Rivonia and Robben Island, he had already tasted prison during the post-Sharpeville state of emergency in 1960.
Yes, that was his first real incarceration experience. Horrific conditions, tiny, filthy cells.
But they resisted even then. Refused to go back to the cell until fed.
Stampeded out.
Yeah.
And Mandela famously tells the commander, "I am not Nelson to you, I am Mr. Mandela." Defiance from day one.
And all this while the treason trial was still technically ongoing.
The absurdity of it. Pulled from that mistreatment back into the courtroom. The defense lawyers eventually withdrew in protest at the state of emergency conditions. He was later released on racially tiered bail.
Then comes the Rivonia raid on Lily's Leaf Farm, the MK headquarters. They found the plan of action.
Operation Mabu, outlining potential guerrilla operations. That became the core of the state's case in the Rivonia trial.
They pushed for the death penalty.
Absolutely.
Right.
But huge international pressure unions, governments, leaders like Brezhnev likely influenced the judge. Crucially, the judge accepted MK and ANC were distinct, and that guerrilla war hadn't actually started. That saved them from execution. Life imprisonment instead.
And then the transfer to Robben Island, 1964.
Him, Walter Sisulu, Govan Mbeki, Kathy Kathrada, others. Singing and chanting defiance even in the police van, arriving on that grim, cold, windswept island, met by guards with guns. The start of a long, hard chapter.
Robben Island, 13 years in the lime quarry. What was that like?
Brutal. Hard labor, picks, shovels, constant shouting. Got an ad, go on, go on.
They used singing to cope initially.
Yes, made the work lighter. But the warders caught on to the protest songs in Exosa and banned it. Then it was just silence and hard labor.
And the discrimination extended to food classification.
Oh, yes. Africans got basic boiled mealies. Coloreds and Indians slightly better food. Political prisoners automatically put in the lowest grade, D group, to control them. Mandela refused to play their game for privileges.
Isolation and censorship were key weapons, too.
Solitary was the worst. Mail restricted, withheld out of spite. Visits short, monitored, limited topics, only English or Africans allowed.
How did they communicate?
Ingeniously. Code names. Milk writing. Invisible ink. Tiny coded messages on ration toilet paper smuggled out. Constant battle of wits. It was designed to dehumanize, but they fought back.
They didn't just endure, they organized, resisted, the go-slow strike.
First collective action in the quarry. Protesting demands to fill the bucket faster.
And Mandela saw potential even in the gang members.
Didn't see them as rivals, but raw material to be converted. Mention one, Joe My Baby, who later joined the ANC. Amazing perspective.
The Red Cross visit in '65 was significant.
Crucial. Conditions temporarily improved. They knew the world was watching. Mandela seized the chance, complained loudly about everything: food, clothes, visits, labor, warders, exposed the reality.
They formed their own internal structure, the High Organ.
Yes, a clandestine committee for communication, managing prison life, organizing actions, and the University of Robben Island.
Teaching each other ANC history.
Started by Sisulu. Grew into courses on the whole liberation struggle, different groups, even Marxism taught by Mac Maharaj, keeping minds sharp, educating the next generation.
And Mandela kept using his legal skills.
Helping other prisoners challenge sentences, a way to fight back within the system, feel less powerless. Maintain his identity as a lawyer, too.
Maintaining morale must have been incredibly hard. How did they do it? Exercise.
Mandela stuck to his boxing routine, running in place, push-ups, encouraged others. Good for body and mind, he said, a way to lose himself in something else.
Drafts, drama, finding moments of normalcy.
Yes. The story about his drafts partner, Don Davis, is funny. Performing Greek tragedies like Antigone, he found them enormously elevating, learning about character under pressure.
And engaging with the warders, trying to educate them.
If they initiated, yes. Calmly explaining ANC policy, trying to demystify the movement, challenge their prejudices, small acts of human connection and resistance.
He even confronted that hostile Colonel Badenhorst.
Verbally, yes,
Okay.
after being insulted. Showed immense self-control but asserted his dignity powerfully. Later, another colonel actually asked for his help restoring discipline, a stunning admission of his leadership.
These glimpses of humanity were vital.
Kept his faith alive that man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished.
But the personal cost, the family separation, was immense, seeing his children grown up.
Heartbreaking. Realizing the years lost. His mother dying in '68 hit him hard. Made him question his path, the cost to his family. She never really understood his commitment.
And Winnie's ongoing struggle outside.
Constant persecution. House attacked, jailed herself. Yet she remained committed, writing to him that prison had liberated her resolve. Their daughters had to be sent away to school due to harassment.
He reflects on Bram Fisher's sacrifice, too.
The Afrikaner who fought against his own people. Mandela saw that as courage in a class by itself. It reinforced his belief that conviction is key to survival. Your spirit can be full even when your stomach is empty.
Then, in 1982, the move to Pollsmoor prison, a change.
Yes, transferred with Sizwe, Gathrada, others, saying Defiance on the way. Conditions were slightly better, more connection to the outside.
And he started a garden.
Became his happiest diversion, growing vegetables, supplying the kitchen, even warders, nurturing life in that concrete world, a small but significant act of self-preservation and connection.
Outside, the struggle was escalating. SADF raids, MK bombings.
Both sides intensifying. The government under P.W. Botha also tried the tricameral parliament strategy.
The toy telephones.
That's what Mandela called them. Separate chambers for Indians and coloreds, but with a white veto. An attempt to divide the opposition.
Did it work?
Largely failed. Huge boycotts by Indian and colored voters in '84 showed solidarity held firm.
And it's from Pollsmoor that Mandela initiates those secret talks. A huge risk.
1986. Writes to Minister Kobe Coetzee, talks about talks. He acted alone, knew his comrades might object, but felt the leader sometimes has to go against the popular stream.
He used visits, like from General Obasanjo, to push the idea.
Exactly. Met the eminent persons group, smartly dressed in a suit the authorities provided, used it to talk negotiation, clarify his stance nationalist, not communist, committed to non-racialism, reassuring whites.
This led to direct meetings with Coetzee.
Secret meetings with Coetzee, with Dr. Barnard from intelligence. He moved from reluctance to frank discussion, engaging the enemy directly.
And he tackled the tough pillars head-on. Violence, communism.
Didn't shy away. On violence, the oppressor dictates the terms. If the state uses violence, the oppressed must respond. Offer peace, will respond peacefully. It is up to you, not us.
Powerful framing.
And he dismantled their fears about communist control, pointed out their own inability to control him, asking how communists could succeed where they failed. Brilliant debating.
Life in Pollsmoor had personal moments, too. Illness, but also humanity from warders.
Yes, the lung issue. But also Warrant Officer Swart, the chef, baking bread, making special meals for visitors, small kindnesses that reinforced his belief in basic human goodness.
He held on to dreams of home, too.
That poignant 1976 dream of being back in Orlando, house full of dancing youth, Winnie relaxing, a deep yearning for freedom, family.
Staying connected to the outside world was a struggle in prison. Getting newspapers, writing memoirs.
Newspapers censored, full of holes. But writing the memoirs was crucial, encouraged by Sizwe and Gathrada to inspire others, remind people of the fight, smuggled out by Mac Maharaj.
And that question about whether their ideas had become frozen in time.
Posed by Strini Moodley. A real concern after so many years inside. The danger of becoming outdated. But international recognition, like the Nehru Award in '80, showed the struggle was still alive, gaining momentum.
Finally, 1989. De Klerk releases Sizwe and others. Mandela knows his time is near.
An emotional reunion at Pollsmoor. He'd already met de Klerk, assessed him as someone they could potentially do business with. Cautious optimism was building.
Then the bombshell. February 9th, 1990. De Klerk tells him he's being released the next day.
Came as a surprise, even with speculation. And Mandela's reaction, objecting, insisting on a week's delay. Release from Victor Verster, not Joburg.
Taking control even of his own release.
Exactly. Ensuring it was organized. Frantic calls to colleagues, Winnie. Drafting the speech, packing up decades of books and papers. History was unfolding.
February 11th, 1990. Release day. The walkout of Victor Verster.
Celebratory mood. Final meal with Warrant Officer Swart, embracing Gregory, acknowledging the humanity of his jailers. Then the drive.
The crowds at the Grand Parade in Cape Town, Archbishop Tutu warning things were getting restless.
Huge crowds, unbelievable scenes. He arrives, raises his fist, the roar of Amandla, Ningoethu, just iconic.
Borrows Winnie's glasses to read his speech.
And addresses them as a humble servant of you, the people, placing his remaining years in their hands. An electrifying moment.
Freedom, but immense challenges awaited. White fears, black hopes.
He immediately tried to bridge that gap. Stated his anger was at the system, not whites. Assured them of their place in a non-racial future.
But the reality of inequality was stark. The Soweto tour.
Showed the poverty hadn't changed. Shameful, he called it. Huge work ahead. He signals readiness to suspend armed struggle to allow negotiations, a pragmatic move despite some ANC resistance.
Leadership transitions, the violence in Natal. It wasn't a smooth path.
Far from it. Refused Tambo's offer to step down, insisted on elections. Failed to reconcile with Buthelezi, leading to terrible violence. Negotiations with de Klerk were tough. De Klerk pushing for minority vetoes, Mandela rejecting it as disguised apartheid.
The ANC suspends talks, makes demands. Mandela is elected ANC president. Codesa talks stall. Then Chris Hani is assassinated.
A terrible blow. Fears of racial war erupting. Mandela's visit to Hani's grieving father was deeply moving. Then the Nobel Peace Prize, shared with de Klerk. A complex partnership, but necessary for peace.
Leading to the first democratic election in 1994.
Incredible scenes. Long lines of people voting, many for the first time, feeling human, feeling free, Mandela casting his first ever vote.
A nation reborn. The ANC wins decisively.
62.6%. A clear mandate, but short of the two-thirds needed to write the Constitution alone, ensuring collaboration.
And the inauguration, May 10, 1994, at the Union Buildings.
The former heart of white supremacy, now hosting this rainbow gathering, an incredibly powerful symbol of transformation.
Mandela's belief in humanity shines through it all, that idea that love comes more naturally than hate.
And seeing that glimmer of humanity even in prison guards, his faith that man's goodness is a flame that could be hidden but never extinguished.
But he also emphasizes that the journey isn't over. Freedom is indivisible.
Crucially, we are not yet free. We've merely achieved the freedom to be free, the right not to be oppressed. The work continues.
His final words in the book are so powerful. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. The true test of our devotion to freedom is just beginning. What an incredible, almost overwhelming journey we've traced today. From Kwanu's fields to the presidency, shaped by tradition, resistance, sacrifice.
It really shows how the icon was forged. Through his heritage, his education, the legal battles, the strategic shifts, the immense personal cost, his ability to learn, adapt, hold on to principle. It's just extraordinary.
And that final point he makes, freedom isn't just an endpoint, is it? It's a way of living, constantly working to enhance others' freedom, too.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does that freedom to be free mean for us in our lives? What responsibilities come with it for ourselves and our communities?
Nelson Mandela's life shows the fight for justice is complex, demanding sacrifice, compromise, but also the strength in evolving, forgiving, seeking that essential humanity, even in opponents. Maybe think about what that could mean for the challenges you face today. It's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom. We hope it's given you a richer, more human view of this incredible figure.